I'm going to review a little more about the Polar Treasure uh, pulp fiction novel and about the genre and writing the genre of pulp fiction. There's a Wikipedia article, the pulps, and it even mentions the Doc Savage as an example of pulp fiction. Of course, it also mentions the shadow and started 1896, lasted till roughly 1955. That's when I came along, so it was ending as I was beginning. Other pulp writers: Edgar Rice Burroughs, Tarzan; Robert E. Howard, Conan. They wrote Pulp Fiction. Flying Aces, Western Story, science fiction, science adventure. All right, what would happen? The main editor was Henry W. Ralston, and Nanovic was assigned The Shadow and Doc Savage, their two biggest sellers. So they hired Dent to do Doc Savage, although he also wrote one Shadow. And they'd say, send us an outline. So Dent would send them an outline, and they would either make changes, approve, or disapprove, and he'd have to send them another outline. Then he'd send them an outline, and they would say, okay, and they would check with the business office to see what artwork they already owned, or if there was any marketing information that was relevant. And here in the Polar Treasure, these polar expedition type stories were selling. So the business said, sure, go ahead. So then they say, okay, here's your outline. Now, I'm not going page by page over everything, but I'm going to go in a little more than I did in the last time. So here's chapter 1, Bronze Nemesis, first sentence: something terrible impended. Now you might think today that that's terrible writing, but what I suspect is that was in Dent's outline. Will Murray may actually have it, I don't know, but the Bronze Nemesis, something terrible impended. So then they talk about this. This turns out to be a bad guy. Hides under a parked car when a cop passes. Nearby loomed the enormous bulk of the New York concert hall. From the stage door on the side street crept strains of a music so beautiful that each move seemed to grasp the heart with exquisite fingers. What is it? A violin. It was a Stradivarius violin, one of the most perfect in the world, and had cost the player $60,000. All right, this is published in June 1933 during the Depression. Most readers could not expect to make $60,000 in their lifetime. So this is talking about somebody has enormous wealth. So they keep along with this bad guy for a while. And the violin concert ends, and he goes up and tells him that Ben O'Gard is outside, and he wishes to talk with you. Now, this guy, this Victor Vale, the violinist, owes his life to Ben O'Gard. So he's very happy. And where is Ben O'Gard? Ah, hold your ponies. I'm leading you to him, ain't I? So it goes long. And they try to kidnap Ben O'Gard. Or they try to kidnap Victor Vale, but he fights, and then Doc Savage comes in and finishes rescuing him, and they depart. And you learn a little bit about Doc Savage. Then number 2, the clicking danger. As he was whipped along New York streets in the speedy gray roadster, it suddenly dawned on Victor Vale that he knew nothing about his rescuer. He doesn't even understand why he had accompanied the strange man so readily. Are you a messenger sent to take me to Ben O'Gard? No, I do not even know anyone by that name. I ask who you are? Doc Savage. Doc Savage. I'm sorry, but I do not believe I've heard that name before. Perhaps I should have introduced myself more formal. Clark Savage Jr. Clark Savage Jr., Victor Vale. Why, among the violin selections I rendered in my concert tonight was a composition by Clark Savage Jr. Surely you are not the composer. Guilty! So he's impressed. So next, there's another fight involving, this one involves machine guns. And there's what I want to show you. This was in the 1933. Now, who's that a picture of or an illustration of? Why, that's Clark Gable, isn't it? Actually, it's Doc Savage. They deliberately made him look like Clark Gable. But they even chose the name Clark from Clark Gable. And they're really kind of tap dancing on plagiarism or name, image, likeness problem, but they go ahead with that. So there's another fight, and Victor Vale's gone. And there's some of the other guys. Rennie, Colonel Renwick, Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Bludget Mayfair from Oklahoma City. Long Tom, William Harper Littlejohn. Want to buy a polar submarine expedition? Captain McCluskey happens to have submarine. Wants to mount a polar expedition. So they get to near the North Pole where they're going, and Captain McCluskey, kill the swabs, shriek McCluskey. McCluskey's actually a bad guy. That's not his real name. So They're clever rats. Ham Brooks, a lawyer. So, now we're back to where I was on the previous video. A hideous crackling and rumbling began to reach his ears. He could hear it plainly when he laid his head to the ice. What was it? Is it? It's the noise of the ice pack. Awesome sound brought him up sharp. He put the hairs on dog's nape on edge. What is it? It's a woman shrieking. It's talking about this technique. What is it? It is. You could write differently, and today they'd say that's bad writing, but that was the custom a century ago in Pulp Fiction. It's not universal. You don't find every passage written that way, but that is written to hold the reader's attention. So, all right, so Doc has been threatened by melting ice, crevasses, polar bears, Eskimos, and these two contending groups of bad guys, Ben O'Gard and Key Hall de Rosa. So they get the treasure back. They rescue the girl, and they're on to their next adventures. And that's the way it went for 16 years in this, about the same for The Shadow, Pulp Fiction. They sold a lot of copies. They're not listed as, in books because they're magazines. They're not, New York Times doesn't consider, even when they sell, there's reports of some of these Pulp Fiction selling 1 million copies. But that doesn't matter to the New York Times because they're magazine stories, even though they're 90 pages or more. So basically, you can still do that. I mean, they check with you to self-publish. You check what's selling, and just like they check with business, and you have a couple people working together, write an outline, and they write it. Plant big and plant small. Big things are worries about crevasses and polar bears, and smaller things, just item by item. First, what is it? Some kind of sensory input, and the answer, it is. Instead of just telling them what it is and going on. It was a successful way to write for 60 years. Commercially, sold a lot of stuff. These are people who are not worrying about a grade from their teacher. They're writing for the readers during the Depression here, which is one reason why they often included big wealth. Doc was the richest man in the world. He owned, among other things, the Empire State Building secretly. And, he got $50 million of treasure in this episode, which he donated, I think, to create hospitals. So